Folks, it's not always easy. It's not always easy to overcome the challenges. It's not always easy to get back up on a horse after you've fallen off. Sometimes the knocks that you take, sometimes the punches that you absorb are just too strong. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. It might not be easy, but man, it's so worth it. And you've got to get up and go. And that's what we're going to talk about. Ginny Telago of Collaboration Partners is next. The heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people, business folks just like you and me. We wake up out of bed and we jump out of bed, and we put our feet on the floor and we go to work on purpose. Pressures come up every single day and say, hey, what are you trying to do? Going to knock you down a little bit, going to make you take a shortcut. We won't let that happen. That is Purpose Under Pressure. That's what this show is all about. Don't forget to like us or follow us or subscribe or tell a friend. If you are watching this show, if you like this show, if you've seen it before, give us a follow. Just click a button somewhere that says, yeah, this show's pretty cool. And other people will see it. And I hope they will watch it as well. That's how we're changing lives, and really appreciate your support as far as that goes. Purpose Under Pressure is brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group, serving sales professionals and sales organizations nationwide from their Akron, Columbus, Ohio locations. They're also in Jacksonville, Florida. They do things right. They do it well. If you've got a sales team and you're trying to make sure they do things right, that they earn their customers the right way, that they are representing your company the right way, and that they're growing your business. That's what Sandler does. And the Ruby Group is one of the top performing Sandler sales training organizations in the country. So you'll do yourself a favor by checking them out at rubygroup.sandler.com. So let's set the show up a little bit. Bad things happen to good people all the time. It's the truth. We need to dust ourselves off when that happens. We need to get back up. We need to go back out there and get them. And that is oftentimes easier said than done. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Our guest is the president and CEO of Collaboration Partners. She's a highly sought after facilitator and coach. She has a story to tell. She's lived a life worth telling about, and she is on purpose under pressure if there ever was such a person. My guest today is Ginny Telago. Ginny, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian. It's so good to be here.
It's tremendous to be here. I'm going to go ahead and break the ice here a little bit and let everybody know that we've tried to record this 74,000 times.
We are literally living this purpose under pressure, just the two of us on this.
We're not quitting, are we? We're not going to give up. I like to think that that means there is a really important story to tell here, and there's a force somewhere that's trying to keep it from folks. But folks, if you're listening now and you're watching now, mission accomplished. Ginny and I got this done, and I have a feeling that this is going to be something special. So tune in and pay attention. Right, Ginny?
Yeah. For sure.
So, Ginny, you are the president CEO of Collaboration Partners. I want you to tell me what's so great about the things that you're doing now, what you love to do, what your purpose is. And we're going to talk about some pressure too. Start there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brian. So my company is a leadership development company. And so I travel all over the U.S. and abroad. I actually just came back from working in London last week.
Awesome.
Where I work with mid to senior level leaders, primarily in all kinds of organizations, from construction to technology to finance. And the purpose of my work is ultimately, I want leaders to be less stressed. That's really the core of it. Leadership is a really stressful job to have. You have a lot of responsibility for money and people and making sure that business growth is happening and all the things that leaders are dealing with on a daily basis. And it really causes a lot of stress. And what we've seen in my world over the past probably 10 years is a lot of people saying no to leadership because they just don't want that kind of stress. And so my work is focused on providing ways for leaders to leverage other people around them to lead with them, to share leadership so that they don't have to carry the load themselves. And by the way, I happen to do it in partnership with horses.
With horses.
And with horses.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I'm interested in following up on why leaders don't want to lead, why people don't want to step up, but I also want to hear about these horses. I think that's a big part of this. Tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been around horses for most of my life, and horses have had a very positive impact for me personally, and I've watched them have a positive impact on hundreds and hundreds of people. And the thing about working with the horses for leadership development is they're amazing teachers at teaching us how to really collaborate and leverage the other people around us with their strengths and their perspectives. And horses lead their herds by sharing leadership. They actually have different roles within the herd that are leadership roles. And it's not just one horse who is guiding everything. It is these different horses in different positions who all have a different job that support each other to make sure that the health and harmony and unity of the herd is always at the forefront. And so when horses have to move through uncertainty, when something in their current reality changes, they come together, and these leaders work together to move the herd to safety or to food or whatever that is.
So while a business owner is trying to develop a team of leaders, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, they need someone to step up into that space. Let's talk about the horses. There's not always just 2 or 3 horses in a group. There's a herd. How do horses choose who's going to be the leader and step into those roles?
That's a great question. So there's 4 capabilities that herd members look for in other herd members to determine who's going to be the leader. The horses don't get to choose. The horses that are in those leadership roles don't say, I'm going to be the leader. They are actually chosen by the other members of the herd. And the 4 capabilities that those lead horses need to be able to demonstrate are that they can place their attention where it needs to be, that they can set clear direction for the herd to move where they need to, that they can use the level of energy that is necessary to respond to the current reality. So they're not using too much energy or too little energy, and that they're congruent. And what that means is that the decisions that those horses are making in the leadership roles are for the best interest of all of the horses in the herd and not just themselves. And this is all based on a model of leadership that was developed by my colleague, June Gunter, from a company called Teaching Horse. It's called the Diamond Model of Shared Leadership. And so as a licensed practitioner with that, I incorporate that into my work as well. And it really has been a game changer for providing teams with the opportunity to not only see what it looks like, but to actually feel it and experience what it's looked like to share leadership.
That is so tremendous. So somewhere along the line, you figured this out and your colleagues figured this out. And I'm still thinking, though, that a business owner or an HR department or whoever's trying to build a team might go, wait, horses? Wait, what? We're working with horses? Let's talk about the pressure of building a business like this when you're kind of trying to hoe your own road a little bit, aren't you?
Oh, for sure. Yes. I mean, I came into this industry fairly early on in its livelihood. So yes, it's been challenging. I'm not going to lie. Coming into it, having to educate my market, right? I'm basically having to educate my market. I'm not coming into
They don't even know it exists, what you do.
Absolutely. And people think it's therapy. So I have to explain why it's not therapy and what's different. I have to overcome people's beliefs, perceptions, and assumptions about horses that they have in order to help them understand, why it's worth a try. And so that has definitely been where my purpose has been vital for me, of really believing that there's a different way for organizations to operate, a different way for leaders and teams to work together. And that's just been my driving force through all of that difficulty in explaining what I do.
And so how do you do it? How are you able to make that connection for a business owner who wants the service, wants team buildership, wants morale change, whatever leadership development? How are you able to overcome those challenges?
Well, I'm finding that the work I'm doing within the leadership and team development space has definitely shifted, where people are much more open to different ways of doing those things. Probably 10 years ago, it was still a real challenge. People were still very tuned into ropes courses, or we're going to take our team bowling, or, something like that for team building. And I actually do team development, and there is a difference there. So when I'm talking to potential clients and people who might be interested in what I'm doing, I really focus in on what their challenges are and trying to find out, why are you still having those challenges? And interestingly, when we start having some of those conversations and they're telling me about some of the things that they've done, right? Some of the leadership development or other things that they've done. Maybe they've done assessments, that type of thing. I'm just curious about, well, how has that shifted what you're doing? And so then I can start to go into a conversation really around, what if there was a way for you to actually shift the way that your team is operating and a way to support your team members? I'm seeing a lot of challenges for people in organizations with influencing others. That's a real challenge for people because people are afraid of damaging relationships by asking, for what they need. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of work around this idea of how do you influence other people to action, which is what leaders have to be able to do, and still maintain the relationships. So when I start touching on the things that I know are their pain points, they start to tune in, and it doesn't become about the horses. It becomes about me solving their problem.
And I know you've solved many problems over your career, and I just congratulate you on the growth of your company. Like you said, you just got back from London. I know you've kind of been around the world a little bit with this company. I want to talk about that, but first I want to get back to the idea of people having trouble finding leaders. Is that a generational thing? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. When I was growing up and in the world and trying to find my way, I wanted to be a leader. Somebody put me in charge. Give me a hat to wear. It's not wrong, but the generations today, the younger generations, are kind of, I want to take care of myself. I want to do my own thing. I want to make sure I change the world in my own manner. And I don't really need that corporate ladder kind of world. I can do this on my own. It's not wrong. It's just a different way of approaching things. Is that what you're dealing with? Or is it something else that's causing people to say, nah, not me. I'm not going to raise my hand this time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And yes, I mean, certainly I think there are generational differences in how people view stepping into leadership. But the reality is that a lot of the people that are saying no are Gen Xers. And because they've watched how people in leadership roles have had to struggle, right? Of not being supported by their senior level people or within the organization, having to do more with less, right? When there are budget cuts, people who are in leadership roles are told, you have to still produce what you are producing or even produce more, but you have to do it with less people and less money. Yeah. And so those are the kind of stressors that people have been dealing with for quite a while now, because, when organizations are looking to save money, the first thing they do is start cutting people. And the second thing they do is they cut training and development. So now you have people who are potentially also being put into some type of leadership position within the organization. It might even be, a frontline supervisor position, but they're not being given the tools to do it effectively. And so those kind of stressors stay with people. They take that stress home with them. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, I really feel strongly that if I can empower people to be able to lead effectively in a way that maintains relationships, which is really important to people, then if I can reduce their stress in their leadership role, then I know that it can reduce their stress when they go home and they can enjoy their family. They can engage in the community. Everything is connected. This is not something where it's one piece or another and that different things don't impact each other. So I really feel strongly that by creating the opportunity for people to see that leadership is not something that has to be stressful and hard all the time. And there are ways to lessen that stress by learning how to share the leadership, that doesn't have to be just you, then that is a path forward, I think, for creating the kind of leaders that organizations need.
And I think, Jenny, you're one of the people to learn about how to manage stress and how to lessen stress and how to go forward, overcoming hurdles that cause stress. Tell me a little bit. I know it enough, but tell me the story, some of the things that you've had to go through to build this business. You've built it and it's fallen, and you've built it and it's fallen, and things have happened in your world that has caused stress and pain, and yet you've figured out a way to make that work. Talk to me about that, would you?
Yeah, I think it is important. You were mentioning early on, bad things happen. It is just part of life. And no matter how much we try to control our environment, we can't control it 100%. And so we have to figure out, what do we do with those things? And I was thinking, as you were talking about that at the beginning of this conversation, how perhaps my work with the horses has been beneficial, right? Because what do people say when kids come off the horse? You say, get back on.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Jump back on. Yep.
And I've certainly done that literally on several occasions. So, I think throughout the time that I've been building my business, I've had a couple of challenges that have popped up. My husband, lost his job at one point in the middle of when my business was kind of just starting to move forward. And so I had to really stop and reflect and say, do I keep going with this? And then miraculously, several opportunities came to me at that point in time. And I realized, nope, I need to keep going. And so I kept building. And then, as you know, and some people that are listening to this probably know, but in 2019, my husband and I lost our home in a fire. We lost our dogs and one of our cats. It was definitely one of the worst things that you could possibly imagine having to experience. Like the ground just drops out from underneath you, and you are just looking around like, now what? And it was definitely a very, very difficult experience. And in the days after that, there was definitely a lot of, wow, what am I going to do? Do I keep going? How do I keep going? And it just really was one of those things where my business actually, I think, was part of what was good for me to move forward.
How so? How did the business support when everything else was falling apart? How were you able to lean on that business?
Well, it gave me something to focus on as I was having to focus on healing from the trauma and working with the insurance company. Those things were taking a lot of energy from me. But my work, getting to still do my work was so fulfilling. And every time that my cup was emptied from the other things, my work kept filling my cup back up. And my support network, my business has provided me with the opportunity to just have an incredible network of people who care about me. And that really came through during that time. And it was really a lifeline, I think, for me. I mean, I was back working with clients 2 weeks after the fire. And I'm not going to lie, there were a lot of challenges, still for that. But it gave me this purpose that I still had. And I was really determined that traumatic event was not going to take away what I felt I really needed to do.
One of the biggest problems we have as managers and leaders is sometimes we're not focusing on leading and we end up doing it for our sales team. How do we coach our people to help them figure out what self-limiting belief that they have that's holding them back from achieving the levels of success that they know they're capable of? Help them flush out what we call their own head trash, that thing that's holding them back. So work with your team, lead by example, watch your team achieve greater levels of success, and watch your team grow, and more importantly, watch your company and your business grow.
Leadership development is so important because businesses have to overcome those challenges. And if it was easy to be a leader, everybody would be it. Like you said,
right.
Everybody wants to do it.
Right.
A leader has to get you through those challenges, over those hurdles, get up, dust off, go out and get it again. And they have to encourage others to follow them through those, for lack of better words, flames, to get through what is trying to halt them. So what did you rely on from your training? What you were telling businesses, what you were helping businesses develop, now you needed perhaps more than ever. What pieces were you relying on that you just knew deep down in that you had to kind of put into action?
Yeah, I think the things that really that stood out for me that I pulled from, right, don't just tell people how to do it, but do it, was, paying attention to my environment, noticing what was happening around me, noticing where I was placing my attention and where did I need to place my attention at any given point in time. It can be really easy when you are experiencing something difficult like that to have have all of your attention going into that and the memory of it, because it's so strong, particularly in the first year or two. And so I had to be very deliberate in saying, okay, right now this needs my attention, but now this needs my attention. And so I was able to shift my attention from dealing with the fire to going and working with my clients. And I also was very protective of my energy. And that's something that leaders sometimes don't really think about, this whole idea of self-care we hear a lot about. But I was very, very intentional about protecting my energy. Again, where am I putting my energy and where does it need to be at any given point in time? And I really paid attention to taking care of myself mentally and physically during those times. And so a lot of people did see that. And I had a lot of people reach out to me, both clients as well as colleagues, over that time frame and said, wow, Ginny, you're really modeling what leaders need to be able to do. And that meant a lot to me, to have people noticing that, because I wasn't doing it with that in mind. I was just trying to survive, get through it and keep going. But it was important for me to be able to model those things, because I knew a lot of people were paying attention and watching how I was handling that whole situation.
Was it more about you personally, or was it about the business? So a wise person once told me, why are you your job? And I was like, whoa, I don't want to be my job. I want to be me. Was overcoming these hurdles, was it about you, or was it about keeping the business going so that you could do your purpose thing?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think it was definitely about me, because number one, mostly because I wanted to kind of prove to myself, I guess, that I had the resilience to move through that, and I wasn't going to let something like that take over the rest of my life. I'm very lucky. My husband is an awesome partner, and we grew very, very closer than we already were before the fire. We grew very close after the fire, and we were really a team working through all of that. And so, but I think me being able to recognize and focus on my own resilience is what allowed me to stay in my business, to keep moving my business forward. And so when opportunities came to me not long after the fire, my business actually started growing. And then through COVID, actually, my business grew even more. And so by me focusing on myself, that then allowed me to have the resources mentally and physically that I needed to put into my business.
I love that. And I'm excited to see all the success that you have. What are the pressures that you can see kind of brewing on the horizon that are going to come and try to knock you down? What are the challenges you think you're going to need to overcome here to continue to grow your business?
I think, obviously, as all businesses are facing, a lot of uncertainty with the economy. Again, when businesses need to cut back, one of the first places they do it is training and development. So far, that hasn't been happening. In fact, we are seeing within my industry and my business growth happening, that organizations know that they need to be investing in their people. It's a really important recruiting and retention tool. Especially for younger workers. They want to know that you want to help them develop the skills that they need to prepare them for future leadership roles. So I think probably that's one of the biggest inflection points that I'm watching. And also just watching the shifts that are happening generationally within the workplace. There's a lot more, the millennials are coming into leadership roles, and some of them are senior leadership roles. And I want to help prepare them to be successful in those roles. And I believe that the work I'm doing is a great way to do that.
And I'm interested in that one as we start to wrap up. I'm interested in how is working with the horses and understanding the horses leadership model. How is that really well tuned or aligned with adapting old style business and new generations and making things really work for the future, the good?
Well, I mean, we've already been seeing for probably the last 20 years, certainly the last 10 to 12 years, a real shift in what people want from their leaders. The idea of one person being at the top, telling everybody what to do, this command and control kind of leadership. For years, we've been seeing, and there's lots of research that shows it's not effective. It may be effective short term, but it's not effective long term. And it really impacts engagement for people. So what I really want with my work for people is to have the opportunity to come and see how they can share leadership, right? That it's not just about one person. And also because the horses are so relational and they give immediate non-judgmental feedback to people, that's a really powerful learning tool for a lot of folks. The horses just are they're just giving you information about how you're showing up. They don't like or dislike you. They like or dislike what you're doing or how you're doing it. And no matter how much I try as a coach to be completely unbiased, if I'm giving you feedback, I can't do it because our human brains just are not wired that way. Our brains are wired to filter information. So when people get this feedback from the horses, they're really open to it, and then they want to do something differently. So I think that's a big part of the game changer, especially for younger leaders that are coming up. They really appreciate having that kind of non-judgmental feedback from the horses.
Ginny, that's tremendous. I really need to try to do it sometime. I'm a big believer in nature. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, do you see those woods over there? We were on a path. And the path was a concrete path. And I said, you see those woods over there? She says, yeah. I said, that's God. I said, do you see the field on this side? And she says, yeah. I said, that's God. I said, do you see the path in the middle that's all concrete and asphalt? I said, that's man. I said, that's not like that. I think anything that comes from nature is just inherently right. And I love the fact that you're able to help bring that out for us mere humans to understand. I started this podcast, or at least podcasting, a few years back during COVID, when business owners were faced with something they'd never seen before. And I wanted to provide a way for them, when they saw a wall, to know that other people were seeing that wall too, and other people are overcoming it. You have overcome that wall, both personally and by building your business. What would you tell a business owner now who's struggling, who's seeing that wall, trying to figure out how he's going to make payroll or make the tax payment or just figure out what's next? What would you tell him or her to encourage the next step?
I think it comes back around to this idea of how the horses manage their environment. When they're faced with uncertainty, they shift their attention. And, instead of staying focused on perhaps a barrier, they shift their attention to find where else can we go. And so I think that's a really important piece for business owners, especially small business owners, because it can be really easy when sometimes the barriers come up and you just are like, I just don't know what to do. Yeah. Find your herd, though. Find the resources. Who are the people that you can reach out to just ask you some questions and give you the opportunity to move your focus, to shift your attention off of the barrier and be able to see more broadly. I mean, this is kind of the idea between when we get super laser focused on something, we lose our peripheral vision. So you have to sometimes stop staring at the barrier in order to see what else might be around and the other opportunities. And so that would be what I would share. That's how I've always been able to move through those things.
That's tremendous. Ginny, that's great advice. If people are interested in your coaching, your speaking engagements, your collaboration partners business, or even just talking to you about overcoming adversity, how would they reach out to you?
You can come to my website. I just launched a new redesigned website. It's thecollaborationpartners.com, and all my contact information is on there. Feel free to shoot me a message on there. My number is 419-651-6854. Would love to talk with anybody who is looking to create a new future for themselves or to navigate through some uncertainty.
Ginny, guess what? We did it.
Yeah!
We did it. We did it. We folks, you might wonder, what the heck are they talking about? We've tried to do this conversation, and something glitches out every single time, whether it's the internet or the computer or the hard drive or my platform or whatever it was. I think it's at least been 3 times, right? I think
it's been 4. I think this is our 5th try.
Is that right? And it's such a story worth telling that neither one of us wanted to give up. And we made it, and everything is A-okay. And I just really thank you for sticking with us,
Absolutely.
overcoming the pressure to provide the purpose. And boy, we lived it right there. Ginny Telago, thank you so much for being a part of Purpose Under Pressure.
I appreciate it.
I do too. Man, that's a victory right there, folks. You need to give us applause because we got her done. This is Purpose Under Pressure. Thank you to Ginny Telago of Collaboration Partners. You'll do yourself a favor if you reach out to her and see if there's a way that she can help you or your business. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform. Sandler helps you to succeed on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your podcasts and your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose.